The United States Navy operates the most expensive fleet in human history. Over 290 warships, 11 nuclear-powered supercarriers, a defense budget exceeding $250 billion annually just for naval operations. Yet right now, a militia operating from the mountains of Yemen, a group with no navy, no air force, and no satellite network, is deciding which ships can and cannot sail through one of the most critical waterways on Earth. The Houthis, a rebel movement that most Americans could not locate on a map 5 years ago, have effectively drawn a red line across the Red Sea, and the most powerful military force ever assembled is adjusting its deployments around that line. This is not a temporary disruption. This is a structural shift in how global power is projected at sea. And the math behind it reveals something the Pentagon does not want you to understand. Before we break down exactly how this happened, we have a quick request. You are watching a brand new channel. Our dedicated team is working over 12 hours a day, every single day, without rest, to bring you the highest quality military analysis on YouTube. Our immediate goal is to reach our first 1,000 subscribers to monetize the channel and fund this research. If you want to support real tactical breakdowns, please hit that subscribe button. It means the world to our team. To understand how a non-state militia can hold the world's most powerful navy in check, you first need to understand the geography that makes this possible. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, located at the southern entrance to the Red Sea between Yemen and Djibouti. Dash is only 18 miles wide at its narrowest navigable point. Every single day, roughly 6.5 million barrels of oil pass through this choke point. Approximately 12% of all global maritime trade, including everything from liquefied natural gas to consumer electronics, transits these waters. For ships traveling between Asia and Europe, the Red Sea route through the Suez Canal shaves off roughly 10 days compared to sailing around the Cape of Good Hope. That time savings translates into fuel costs, crew wages, and delivery schedules that the global economy has been built upon for decades. When someone disrupts this corridor, the ripple effects are not measured in days. They are measured in billions. The Houthis understood this long before most Western analysts gave them credit. Their campaign against Red Sea shipping did not begin as a random act of aggression. It was a calculated escalation rooted in a decades-long relationship with Tehran. The group, formerly known as Ansar Allah, controls roughly 80% of Yemen's population centers and dominates a vast stretch of the Red Sea coastline, including the critical port of Hodeidah. From this coastline, they can launch anti-ship missiles and explosive drones directly into the shipping lanes that the global economy depends on. And they have been doing exactly that with increasing sophistication since late 2023. The initial wave of attacks targeted commercial vessels with loose or perceived ties to Israel. Container ships, bulk carriers, and oil tankers were struck or threatened. But as the campaign evolved, the target set expanded. By mid-2025, the Houthi forces had attacked vessels with no connection to Israel whatsoever, including ships flagged to countries that had publicly called for peace. 2 cargo ships were sunk in a single week in July 2025, killing at least 4 sailors. The message was unmistakable. This was no longer about solidarity with Palestine. This was about control of a global choke point. And by March 2026, when the Houthis formally entered the Iran war by firing ballistic missiles and cruise missiles at Israel, the Red Sea had transformed from a contested shipping lane into an active theater of war connected directly to the Strait of Hormuz. This is where the equation breaks. The United States Navy responded to the Houthi threat with what it does best. It deployed Aegis-equipped destroyers, among the most advanced warships ever built, marched into the Red Sea to establish a defensive shield. Ships like the USS Carney and USS Mason took up positions along the shipping lanes, their SPY-1D radar arrays scanning the sky for incoming threats. And they found them, dozens of them. Houthi forces launched wave after wave of anti-ship ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and one-way attack drones at both military and commercial targets. The American destroyers intercepted the vast majority of these attacks using a layered defense system built around some of the most expensive munitions in the world. The Standard Missile-2, or SM-2, costs approximately $2.1 million per unit. The SM-6, a more advanced interceptor capable of engaging ballistic threats and performing terminal defense, costs $4.3 million. The Evolved Sea Sparrow Missile, or ESSM, runs at $1.7 million. Even the Rolling Airframe Missile, designed as a last-ditch point defense weapon, costs over $900,000 per round. Each of these munitions was engineered to defeat sophisticated threats from near-peer adversaries: Russian anti-ship missiles, Chinese ballistic weapons, high-speed maneuvering warheads. Instead, they are being fired at Houthi drones that cost between $2,000 and $10,000 to build. Read that again. A $2 million missile is being used to destroy a $10,000 drone. That is a cost-exchange ratio of 200 to 1 in favor of the attacker. And that ratio does not even account for the full picture. The destroyer that fires the interceptor costs roughly $2 billion. While the crew of 300 sailors aboard represents years of training and irreplaceable human capital. The fuel to keep the ship on station, the logistics chain that resupplies its vertical launch cells, the maintenance cycle that keeps its radar and combat systems operational. When defense analysts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies examined this equation, they concluded that the real cost of each intercept is dramatically higher than the sticker price of the missile alone. The system was never designed for this, and the Houthis know it. Their entire strategy is built on exploiting this asymmetry. Every drone they launch, whether it hits its target or gets intercepted, costs the United States orders of magnitude more to defeat than it costs to build. Every salvo drains the vertical launch cells of an Aegis destroyer. These cells that carry a finite number of interceptors and require the ship to leave station and sail to a port for reloading. A single Arleigh Burke-class destroyer carries up to 96 cells. When a significant portion of those cells are expended on cheap drones, that ship is effectively mission-killed without ever being hit. It must withdraw, reload, and return. During that window, the shipping lane is exposed. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern. The supply chain behind the Houthi arsenal leads directly to Iran. According to documents obtained by regional intelligence services and confirmed by multiple Western outlets, officers of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are physically present on Yemeni soil. They are not merely advising. They are deeply involved in supervising the Houthis intelligence, drone, and missile capacities. The technology transfer includes Iranian-designed anti-ship missiles, guidance systems adapted from commercial GPS units, and drone airframes that can be manufactured locally with minimal industrial infrastructure. Iran does not need to ship completed weapons across the Arabian Sea. It ships the knowledge, the components, and the software. The Houthis assemble and launch. This arrangement gives Tehran something extraordinarily valuable: a second maritime choke point under proxy control, 1,800 nautical miles from the Strait of Hormuz, operated by a force that Iran can activate, escalate, or de-escalate without ever putting an Iranian soldier in the line of fire. When Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz to pressure Washington during the 2026 crisis, the Houthis simultaneously threatened to resume attacks on American warships in the Red Sea. The coordination was not subtle. It was announced publicly, and it placed the United States in a strategic dilemma that no amount of firepower can easily solve. Here is the dilemma. If Washington escalates against the Houthis with the full force of American air power, it risks turning the entire Red Sea and Hormuz arc into a unified anti-American theater. Every Iranian proxy from Lebanon to Iraq to Yemen would have justification to escalate simultaneously. The political cost of a multi-front war, one that stretches from the eastern Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean, is something no American administration wants to bear. But if Washington does not escalate, the Houthis continue to erode American credibility in the most visible way possible. The world watches as the strongest navy in history reroutes, absorbs costs, and adjusts its posture around a militia's red line. The insurance industry tells this story in numbers that are impossible to ignore. War risk premiums for vessels transiting the Red Sea surged to approximately 1% of a vessel's total hull value following the most intense waves of Houthi attacks. For a large container ship valued at $150 million, that translates to an additional $1.5 million in insurance costs per transit. Before the Houthi campaign, premiums sat at roughly 0.4%. That increase alone has driven hundreds of commercial vessels to reroute around the Cape of Good Hope, adding 10 to 14 days to their journey and approximately $1 million in additional fuel costs per round trip. The cumulative effect on global trade is staggering. Analysts estimate that sustained disruption of the Red Sea corridor reduces effective global shipping capacity by roughly 9 to 10%. That reduction translates directly into higher consumer prices, delayed deliveries, and strained supply chains that affect every economy connected to maritime trade. European importers, Asian exporters, and energy markets that depend on the Suez Corridor all absorb this cost. And every day the disruption continues, the damage compounds. But we have not even reached the most critical part of this story. The real danger is not what the Houthis have done. It is what they have proven. They have demonstrated that a non-state actor with access to cheap, commercially derived technology and a strategic coastline can hold a global shipping lane hostage indefinitely. The weapons they use are not revolutionary. Modified commercial drones, repurposed navigation systems, and relatively simple solid-fuel rockets. What is revolutionary is the application. By targeting the economic infrastructure of globalization itself, they have created a form of warfare that the existing American defense architecture was not built to counter. The United States military was designed to win wars against nation-states. Its carrier strike groups, its Aegis destroyers, its submarine fleet, all of these systems were optimized for high-intensity combat against the Soviet Union and later against China and Russia. The doctrine assumed that adversaries would field expensive platforms, sophisticated sensors, and centralized command structures that could be targeted, disrupted, and destroyed. The Houthis have none of these things. They operate in small, dispersed cells. Their launchers are mobile, their command structure is decentralized, and their weapons are so cheap that losing them is part of the strategy. The Pentagon has begun to adapt. Programs to field directed energy weapons, high-powered lasers capable of defeating drones at a cost of roughly $10 per shot are accelerating. The Navy's latest tests with systems like the layered laser defense have shown promise against small, unmanned targets. But these systems are not yet deployed at scale. They require enormous amounts of electrical power. But they are sensitive to atmospheric conditions like humidity, salt spray, and dust, and they cannot yet engage the full spectrum of threats that Houthi forces are capable of launching. A laser can burn a slow-moving drone out of the sky. It cannot intercept a ballistic missile traveling at Mach 4, and this is where the Hormuz connection becomes truly dangerous. Iran's strategy is not to win a naval war against the United States. It is to make the cost of American presence in the Middle East so high, so financially draining, and so politically exhausting that Washington eventually recalculates. The Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb are the two jaws of this strategy. When both are active, the United States must maintain combat-ready naval forces in two separate theaters simultaneously, each requiring dedicated carrier strike groups, logistics ships, and replenishment cycles. The strain on the fleet is immense. The Navy currently operates roughly 300 deployable ships. Committing two carrier strike groups and their escorts to the Middle East limits what is available for the Western Pacific, where China is conducting its own aggressive naval expansion. This is the trap. Iran and its proxies are not trying to sink the American fleet. They are trying to stretch it. Every destroyer pinned down in the Red Sea is one fewer destroyer available for a Taiwan contingency. Every interceptor expended on a Houthi drone is one fewer interceptor available for a Chinese anti-ship ballistic missile. The resources are finite, the threats are multiplying, and the cost curve is moving in exactly the wrong direction for the United States. Consider the numbers. A single Arleigh Burke-class destroyer costs approximately $2 billion to build and roughly $50 million per year to operate. The United States has 73 of these ships in service. If the Houthis can force even 6 to 8 destroyers into permanent Red Sea rotation, the opportunity cost measured in lost presence elsewhere in the world is enormous. Those ships are not patrolling the South China Sea. They are not reinforcing NATO's northern flank. They are not available for rapid deployment to a crisis that has not yet erupted. They are tied down, burning through interceptors, defending shipping lanes against an enemy that spends less on its entire annual weapons budget than the cost of a single American missile salvo. The strategic implications extend far beyond the Middle East. Every allied navy is watching. If the United States cannot maintain freedom of navigation in the Red Sea without absorbing unsustainable costs, what does that signal about American willingness to do the same in the South China Sea or the Taiwan Strait? Deterrence is built on perception, and the perception right now is that a militia with modified commercial drones can impose costs on the American military that are disproportionate to the threat they represent. That perception, if it hardens, undermines the entire foundation of American naval supremacy. There is a deeper layer to this story that most analyses miss entirely. The Houthi campaign has exposed a critical vulnerability, not just in American hardware, but in American doctrine. The United States has spent decades building a military optimized for decisive, overwhelming force against identifiable targets. Find the enemy fleet, destroy it, establish sea control. But what happens when the enemy has no fleet? When the missiles come from trucks hidden in mountain valleys? When the drones are launched from civilian rooftops in Hodeidah? When the command structure is a network of encrypted phones rather than a headquarters building that can be struck with a precision-guided munition? The answer, based on what we have observed in the Red Sea, is that the American military adapts slowly, expensively, and incompletely. Strike operations against Houthi launch sites, which the Pentagon has conducted repeatedly, achieve temporary degradation, but not permanent elimination. The launchers are mobile. The crews disperse. Within days, sometimes hours, new attacks resume from different locations. The terrain of western Yemen, mountainous, arid, and vast, provides natural concealment that satellite imagery and signals intelligence can only partially penetrate. And yet, the Houthis continue to escalate. In late March 2026, they fired ballistic missiles and cruise missiles at Israel, formally entering the wider Iran war. Their military spokesman announced that these strikes were conducted in support of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the resistance fronts in Lebanon, Iraq, and Palestine. This was not a rogue action. It was a coordinated opening of a fourth front in a regional conflict, timed to coincide with Iranian operations in the Strait of Hormuz. The Houthis were signaling to Washington that any military action against Iran would be answered from Yemen as well. The implications are severe. Israel, which had previously conducted airstrikes against Houthi infrastructure and eliminated several mid-level commanders, now faces a persistent long-range threat from a direction its Iron Dome and David's sling systems must account for continuously. The United States, already stretched between Hormuz and the Red Sea, must now consider that escalation against Iran could trigger a sustained Houthi missile campaign against both Israeli cities and American naval assets simultaneously. This is the architecture of Iran's deterrence strategy. It is not built on aircraft carriers or stealth fighters. It is built on geography, proxies, and cost asymmetry. The Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen. Each node is cheap to operate, difficult to destroy, and capable of imposing costs that far exceed the investment required to maintain them. Together, they form a network that can threaten multiple American interests simultaneously without ever engaging the United States in the kind of direct, high-intensity conflict that American forces are designed to dominate. The question that should keep strategists awake at night is not whether the United States can defeat the Houthis. It can. The question is whether the cost of doing so, measured in dollars, in diplomatic capital, in fleet readiness, and in strategic distraction, is worth paying when the real threat may be emerging 12,000 kilometers away in the Western Pacific. The Red Sea was supposed to be a secondary theater, a manageable disruption. Instead, it has become a laboratory for a new kind of warfare, i.e. one where the cheapest weapons on the battlefield are winning the most important equation of all. Not the kill count, the cost count. The balance of power at sea is not shifting because someone built a bigger ship. It is shifting because someone figured out that you do not need a bigger ship. You need a cheaper missile. And right now, the Houthis have thousands of them. What that means for the future of American naval power, for the global economy, and for the next conflict that erupts in waters far from Yemen is a question that the Pentagon is only beginning to answer. This content was prepared for you by our team. If you found this analysis valuable, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. What do you think the United States should do about the Houthi threat in the Red Sea? Share your thoughts in the comments. In our next video, we will be right here again, right at the heart of the most critical developments. See you soon.